Hey everyone, Dr. Frunkey here with a review and final diagnosis on the Spyderco Native 5 Lightweight in Maxamet steel. Now, this knife I was very excited to buy. If you watched my unboxing video, I explained that a little bit about why I was so excited. Long story short is I owned a Native 5 some time ago, an S110V. I had bought one from my girlfriend in pink a while back, and so it held a very special place in my heart. Now, I had sold my other one, but when I heard that they were making it in Maxamet, I was super excited. The reason for that is one of my absolute favorite knives, and probably the knife that I use the most, is my Maxamet Spyderco Mule Team number 24. The Mule Team being an awesome fixed blade option that a lot of people make these sweet handles for. These are the Halpern titanium carbon fiber handles, but this knife has been flawless in its performance. The Maxamet has just destroyed cardboard, plastic, wood, you name it. I've put this thing up against it and it just cuts through it without any issue whatsoever. So I've thoroughly enjoyed that. So I was very happy to see that they were putting the Maxamet steel into full regular production. Now, they started out with the Manix 2, but I'm not a huge fan of the Manix simply because of what it looks like. I'm a big fan of aesthetics, and if a knife doesn't look quite right, I'm probably not going to buy it. But the design on this knife is very nice. I strongly prefer the way that this knife looks even to the Delica, even though the base model kind of comes in at the same, close to the same price point. It's maybe the difference of about $70 to about $90, but I do like the lines on this knife very much. I think it's very pretty. It's also extremely ergonomic. So let's go ahead and break this knife down anatomically, and we can talk about what we've got before we get into how it carries and my overall thoughts and final diagnosis. So up front, we've got a 2.95-inch blade of Maxamet steel with a 2.42-inch cutting edge. It's got a nice forward finger choil and some nice jimping in there and some nice jimping up top. Of course, deployment is through the Spyder hole, a Spidey hole, whatever you want to call it. So it does provide for ambidextrous opening. Being a backlock as well, it provides for a very nice ambidextrous function, so I do appreciate that very much about the knife. The blade came ridiculously sharp from the factory. It probably is ground at about 15 degrees per side if I was a betting man, and it just came ridiculously sharp, and it stayed sharp. I did a cutting test with some cardboard on this knife, and it still is ridiculously sharp. I bet if I just stropped it a little bit, it would just be, super hair popping sharp again. It still, cuts a fine line through magazine paper. It may have only lost a tiny bit of its hyper sharpness, but it's still a crazy sharp edge without any chips. Now, that's something worth discussing right there. My good friend Nick Shabazz, as well as a few other people in the Spyderco forums, it looks like, have had some difficulty with Maxamet chipping on them. Maxamet is a steel that is very unique in the sense that it can be hardened to very high hardnesses. I believe someone tested this one at around 70 Rockwell. Sal said that he was getting the Mule Teams up to 68 to 69 Rockwell hardness, excuse me. And that's truly impressive. The thing about Maxamet is that given its chemical composition, it's also supposed to be quite tough, therefore resistant to chipping and things like that. However, people seem to be experiencing that. I have not. You can see it on video. I did not experience chipping with hard cardboard cutting. I didn't get a chance to take this knife out and use it in the woods or anything like that, and whittle any wood or anything like that. But I will say that it powered through paper and cardboard and cloth without even batting an eye, and it remained very sharp, and I'm very impressed with Maxamet steel. I'm really looking forward to them using it in some future models, specifically the PM2 and the Para 3, so we'll see where that goes. Surely those knives will be coming at some point. They do it in the full flat grind, as they classically do. They did this one in a really nice stone wash. Let's see if I can get that focused. They actually said that the knife was so hard, the blade steel was so hard, that they could not put their standard satin finish on it, machined satin, because they couldn't do it without ruining a bunch of belts. So they did a nice tumbled stone wash on here. It actually is a nice user finish, so I wasn't afraid to use this knife when I was carrying it. I appreciate that. Moving back to the pivot, This thing actually runs on no washers. You can see from my disassembly video that it is just plastic on steel, and the action is, well, not awesome. It's rather jerky. It's rather kind of gritty. You can kind of feel it every time you do it, but that's just the nature of this knife. What this knife has, in exchange for smoothness, this knife gets strength. The lockup is like a bank vault. I know that some people use that to describe knives, but really and truly this one is like that. The satisfying click that you get from engaging this lock is like no other knife I've ever had. Just listen to this. Very, very strong, very tight lockup with absolutely no blade play whatsoever. And the disengaging of the back lock is not difficult. You do have to give it a firm press, but the spring does lighten up over time. And it will drop freely like you see up until it hits your fingers, so that's not so bad. It is smooth in that sense, but it will never be a Spyder flickable knife. You know, no matter how hard I do that, it never really gets much beyond that point. So you just kind of have to be aware of that if you're going to consider buying it. It's got a standard simple pivot. This knife is definitely designed for everyday carry and hard use rather than showiness or anything like that. Moving back to the handles, you've got a very nicely designed and ergonomic handle here made out of the multi-directional FRN that Spyderco does so well. I was initially not a fan of the FRN handles. After getting the S110V Native 5, though, I changed my tune entirely. This stuff is awesome. It's sharp enough to give you good grip, but not so sharp that it's uncomfortable in the hand. It's got a really cool visual effect to it, and I do appreciate that. And it is pretty strong. There is a small amount of flex, very small amount of flex to the handle, but really not enough to be noticeable and not enough that I'm ever going to break it. This knife does not come with steel liners on the inside. It's thick enough FRN that you don't really need that. It's got a simple screw-together construction where the screw goes all the way through to the other side where there are some nested liners or nested little screw holes in there where it screws into. The lock bar is pinned in place. It's very easy to disassemble and maintain, as you can see on my video. And the clip is a standard Spyderco spoon clip. This one is a little bit different. It's similar to the Tenacious series, where it's got a hole in the lanyard hole is inside of the screws. So if you're going for a deep carry clip, that can make it a little bit more difficult. I have one on order right now, and we'll see what it looks like when it gets here. So how does this thing EDC? It EDCs magically. This thing is super, super light. It comes in at about 2.5 ounces as advertised. Why don't we go ahead and test out that theory or that number here so you can see my scale right there. What is it going to say? Actually 2.48 ounces on the actual scale, so even lighter than advertised. So very, very impressive on that one. It's 0.43 inches in thickness and an overall length of just under 7 inches. So a nice, compact, lightweight package. You are going to love EDCing this knife. Honestly, I think that the overall strength, the thickness, and the steel really give this a boost above the Delicas or even the other mid-range Spydercos. If you're looking to buy a mid-range Spyderco, look at the base model Native 5 in S35VN. Those come in around $90 to $100. If you're going to spend $75 up to $85 or so on a Delica or a special Delica, look at this knife instead. I really think that you should be paying attention to this one. It is a great, great knife, very lightweight, very, very strong, very ergonomic. It's like the Delica evolved, you know? It's like if the Domino and the Delica had a baby, it would look something like this, I think. So what is my final diagnosis on this knife? My final diagnosis on the Maxamet Native 5 is perfect EDC knife. Absolutely perfect. It is no nonsense. You are not afraid to use this knife. The handle and the blade are purpose-built for use, and everything functions very well. It's easy to take apart, easy to maintain, and very affordable. So a perfect EDC knife. I won't say the perfect because that's relative to each person, but this is spectacular, and I absolutely love it. I hope to see Maxamet steel on some more blades. Definitely go and give this one a check out. A couple of my friends are getting this one in for review. Nick Shabazz obviously has one. My good friend Treddy's Knife Reviews has one as well. So look out for their videos on this knife. Thanks for watching, guys. If you enjoy my videos, click like and subscribe to my channel. Go follow me on Instagram at Dr. Frunkey. And as always, guys, this is Dr. Frunkey saying, take care.